Mr. President, the amendment that I rise to offer today as a second degree will do something that I and several of my colleagues have been seeking to do on the floor for the last 2 weeks or so, and that is to make absolutely certain that big oil polluters pay for oil spills and not the taxpayers, not fishermen, not small business owners, not coastal communities, not states, not municipalities. This amendment would eliminate the artificially low liability cap that is currently in place, a cap that is currently set at $75 million, which means that companies like BP are only on the hook legally for less than 1 day's profits. BP made nearly $6 billion in 3 months of this year in profits, not proceeds, profits. And that comes out to about $94 million a day. So the present liability cap, the cap that says, yes, you have to be responsible for all the cleanup, all of the efforts, but to the extent that you have damaged shrimp fishermen, commercial fishermen, to the extent that you have damaged coastal communities, to all of that extent, there's a $75 million limit. Well, if we let that stand, that would be less than 1 day's profit for BP. So we want to make sure that they are legally on the hook and that their spill, which wreaks complete economic devastation on small business and local communities and our environment that could very well last for years to come, that it does not allow them to get away with not being fully responsible. Now, I believe yesterday we had a big day here in the Senate in this debate about liability caps for oil companies that spill. First, the administration finally clarified. It had originally said, we believe the cap should be lifted, but it had not quantified as to what that should be. And yesterday, the administration clarified its position to say that it will support unlimited liability for damages caused by future spills in deep waters. Then several of my Republican colleagues came to the floor and support unlimited liability for damages caused by this particular spill, not a broader. I think that's progress, and we certainly embrace the fact that for this and any potential future spill, there should be unlimited damages. So from when I started this effort with several of my colleagues, Senator Nelson, Senator Lautenberg, Senator Murray, and others, we have come from an opposition to lifting the cap to a determined amount to now having an understanding that unlimited liability, certainly in a spill of this nature, should in fact take place. But we cannot depend on BP's good word or BP's statements. There is no consent judgment here. There is no written guarantee here. We need to make sure that those communities within the Gulf and that we as a nation and as taxpayers do not have to pay for BP or any other responsible party. So it's encouraging to see colleagues coming around to see the way that I and 20 Senate co-sponsors of my bill are supporting, but we still have a bit of a ways to go. We all should agree that all oil companies should pay for all damages caused by spill from offshore facilities, certainly if they're doing deep water drilling, certainly if they create the risk, and if that risk ultimately ends in damage, we should be able to universally agree that they should be responsible for the liability. But we should not depend upon doing that just when an oil company makes statements that they promise to pay, not just when the company is so big that it can pay with a few weeks' worth of profits. We need to make sure people whose livelihoods are ruined by an oil spill are protected no matter what. We need to ensure that big oil companies are held accountable no matter what. And that's why I'm offering this amendment to remove the cap on liability completely so we can truly hold oil companies accountable for all of their potential damages. Now, I've heard some people refer to this legislation, or some people referring to keeping the oil companies responsible, like BP, as un-American to hold a multi-billion-dollar corporation accountable for the very disaster that it created. I think it is un-American not to be able to pursue such a corporation for the purposes of holding them accountable for the disaster that they have created to the economic well-being of commercial fishermen, shrimp fishermen, seafood processing plants, coastal communities, wetlands, and a whole host of other consequences that we have here. This is a chance to show if we are going to stand up with big oil or with small businesses, fisheries, and coastal communities, whether we are going to stand up with multi-billion-dollar corporations or with the taxpayers of this country so they have no liability whatsoever. I think the choice is pretty clear. I hope everyone in our chamber will do the right thing to hold big oil accountable for the damages they have caused, and I hope our colleagues will join us in this effort. I'm really, truly pleased to see that there is a movement in this direction. I hope we can make it a bipartisan movement. I think the American people are seeing that regardless of what BP ends up committing to pay or what they don't commit to pay, because when they came before the Energy Committee and the executives were there and they were asked what is all legitimate claims, they equivocated on a series of answers. Well, is this a legitimate claim? Is this a legitimate claim? Is this a legitimate claim? They equivocated on all of that. And when the three different entities here, BP, Transocean, and Halliburton, all who may be responsible parties here, had the opportunity, they all did the finger pointing at the other one. Well, that does not give me a sense of security or guarantee that this enormous consequence to our environment and to our economy is going to be taken care of by the words of those who both shift blame and equivocate on their responsibility. I think we have clearly learned that there obviously is no such thing as a rig that is too safe to spill, and there should be no legal wiggle room for oil companies that devastated coastal businesses and communities now or in the future. This spill, if nothing else, tragedy that it is, should serve as a rallying cry for holding big oil responsible for the damage it has caused. That's our choice. That's our opportunity. And I would urge that that is the fierce urgency of now. As we look at that live feed of that oil gushing every day for now well over a month, it is our fiduciary duty to the taxpayers of this country. It is our duty to the next generation of Americans in this country to make sure that the companies that created this set of circumstances and this enormous damage are fully liable for it. And that is the opportunity we have by virtue of this second-degree amendment. I hope my colleagues will embrace the opportunity and live out to those responsibilities. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.